What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video, and today we are going to be taking a look at the various in-game events that were added in with the latest maintenance, and then we are going to be taking a look at some of the new information as it pertains to the boss syndrome drops that we will be seeing in the next 8 days. We're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we do all that, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, and let's go ahead and talk about the hypest update we have had in a very long time. So when you first log in after the maintenance right now, you are going to be greeted with this beautiful image of all these rubies. As you can see here, you will be getting 10k total rubies over the course of the next 9 days. So 1,000 a day for the next 8 days, then 2,000 on the 9th day, then on the 10th day, we are going to be getting the long-awaited Boss Syndrome Fighter Memory. So we will be getting a generic Boss Syndrome memory that we can use to awaken our current Boss Syndrome characters and our future Boss Syndrome characters, of which we will be talking about quite a bit in this video today. But very awesome stuff. We talked about this yesterday when they announced it. This is great news. We really needed this hot off the heels of a collaboration. We will have 18 total days to use these. So the way this will work for those of you who are new, whenever you get these, if you take a look up there at the top where my rubies are, you're going to see that extra 1,000 right below my bank, and that is basically going to be your limited time rubies that you can use, and that's where those will live. So keep that in mind. Now, there are tons of things to talk about here. First and foremost, I want to talk about the Akane Dice Game here because there is something really cool going on with the mileage. So not a lot to talk about the actual dice game itself. It's pretty much your traditional dice game. But if you take a look here, this is going to be your mileage for doing it. And as you'll see here, big addition here is going to be this purple invitation that we get for the final round. So this is really cool that they did this. They knew that we needed these hot off the heels of this collaboration, so they clearly put a lot of thought into this in order to make this something that was going to be beneficial for all of us. But as far as everything in here, you're going to see some gold hammers and some rubies, which is going to be the biggest takeaway from this besides that invitation. So awesome stuff, guys. This mileage is really worth it. And actually, if you take a look here, something that they're doing that is a little bit different than their normal, you're actually going to be able to obtain dice in these different dungeons. So if you take a look here, you'll be able to obtain dice in the Advent dungeon, you'll be able to obtain them in the power-up dungeon, and so on and so forth. So make sure that you guys are doing these things. This is very cool that they're doing this. You want to make sure that you can get the full completion of this, which is going to take 20 rounds around this board. So you need to make sure that you are doing this because this dice game is only going to be around for 8 days. So basically it's going to end right around the time that we get these Boss Syndrome characters, which actually if you take a look right here, you'll see this nifty little thing down here that is telling us, hey, look guys, make sure that you're prepared, make sure you're saving. The Boss Syndrome characters are coming back, they're returning. So very cool that they did all this. This is a huge sign that they are going to start being a little bit more transparent and helping us prepare better for this kind of stuff. So very cool that they did this. Now next up on the super mission, you're going to see this guy here. This is going to be your Imprint Stone super mission, and basically what you're seeing here is you're going to see all kinds of different goodies for your hammers, which is very cool. You're going to be getting a ton of the lower tier hammers in these guys, so make sure that you're doing this stuff daily so that way you can take advantage of this. This is going to be around for 14 days, but you'll see a ton of the hammers. These are all going to be the kind of mystery boxes here for these stones, which is really just going to be the purple plus stones and so on and so forth. So the stones that aren't necessarily the most sought after anymore, but hey, we've talked about in the past how I'm not a big fan of these mystery boxes for these, but it is what it is, because on the last day, for the final mileage reward, you do get a selection box. So that'll be nice for a lot of us, especially for people who are newer to the game. That way they can get some of these stones. My recommendation, a lot of times, comes down to this one, but there's several good ones in here. So they're still pretty usable. They're not the best in the world. They're not going to be better than your R stones at all, but for people who are on a budget or don't have the ability to do a lot of the end game content, this is really cool for them to be able to get these types of stones. So those are going to be your different in-game events. Now, as far as anything else, we are going to have had some new additions to the shop. So any of these things that are going to cost your rubies right now, obviously avoid them. These are not worth it. Now, while these things, I guess, are kind of nifty because this is the first time we've seen these things implemented, we've seen these things in the data mines in the past, I would definitely be skipping these. You don't need this stuff because really it's just going to cost you rubies that you could be saving for your boss syndrome characters, so don't be doing that. Now, as far as this new package here, this guy here is okay. I'm going to tell you guys, though, that this is definitely something that I would probably, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you see down here, right, so take a look here. You get a ton of rubies here, so it's tough for me to tell you guys it's a bad value because it's not. It's actually a phenomenal value for the amount of rubies you're getting. How much is that? That's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You're basically getting 6,270 rubies total, I believe, is what you're seeing there. Now, of course, getting 300 capsules and so on and so forth is cool. Honestly, 10 elite enhancement hammers and this generic memory selection box, none of that stuff really matters, but all these rubies for 80 bucks, I mean, if you're a whale, this is a really good deal, but 80 bucks is 80 bucks, so yeah, it's definitely got value to it. It's definitely worth it if you have the money to spend, but still. And then we also have this weekly plus capsule package, which for 20 bucks for 800 rubies and 20 times 10 selection boxes, I'd just pass, to be honest with you guys. I don't think you need to be buying capsules that way. You can just grind those. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be what we're getting as far as kind of those types of updates. I am going to be going in and testing a lot of the other stuff as far as the things they fixed as far as patching and all that sort of stuff, as far as bugs and so on and so forth, the things that are going to be more so kind of your in-game stuff that you're going to need to be testing and things. I'm going to test that stuff today when I get some time to actually play around with this update, and I will kind of relay that information to you guys after I've had enough time to kind of go over all that. So that is pretty much going to be it for those things. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the boss syndrome characters themselves, because we do have confirmation on who the next two boss syndrome characters are going to be, and that is, of course, going to be, thanks to the Korean forums, we know that we are going to be getting Boss Syndrome Geese and Boss Syndrome Krizalid, which is going to be really, really awesome for all of us. For those of you who are new to the channel, Geese is my favorite SNK boss. I am a huge Fatal Fury fan. This is huge news for me, and I know that there are a ton of Krizalid fans out there, and I'm a fan of Krizalid myself. So I want to take this time now to talk about some of the rumors going on out there, because we're going to be hearing more and more rumors over the next 8 days before these characters drop, and you should take everything right now with a grain of salt that's going on and going around on the forums and on Discord and so on and so forth, because no one has any confirmation whatsoever on what iterations of these characters we're going to be seeing as FES, but I do want to address some of those rumors and kind of talk about them, specifically the biggest one being Nightmare Geese. So as much as I love Nightmare Geese and would love to see this version of the character added in as his boss syndrome version, we don't have confirmation on this, guys. I know some people out there saying that there was some sort of data mine showing off his finisher from KOF 2002 UM for Nightmare Geese, which is some of the footage you're seeing here is from 2002 UM, but I have not seen that. Steven has not seen that. I've confirmed that with Steven, my resident data miner slash translator slash awesome dude, and he does not have any information on that whatsoever. He has not seen anything in the data. So take everything with a grain of salt right now, guys, until we actually have footage or photos of some of this stuff from the usual data miners out there. I would not believe anything going on, because really it's just going to be nothing but disappointment for a lot of people if they buy into this sort of stuff, just like it always is with any sort of hype release. But I do want to take a little bit of time to explain what Nightmare Geese is to people, because I feel like a lot of people out there get confused on this and call him a zombie or whatever. So Nightmare Geese is not a zombie. He's more, depending on the iteration, he's more akin to an apparition, more of a ghostly type figure, and you're seeing this footage here, and this is going to be a version of Nightmare Geese that you may not be familiar with, but this is actually going to be the kind of more old school version of Nightmare Geese, as it were, but this is the version that I do believe has a good chance of being added in. However, I do think that there is a better chance of Geese being added in as kind of the more ghostly purplish version, which we'll talk about why here momentarily. But as you'll see here, these are going to be some data mines that have been in the data for a very, very long time, and these are going to be of Nightmare Geese from his more kind of new school version of the character, which you've seen in things such as Tekken and so on and so forth. And this version of the character is technically canon now, and we'll talk about why. But the reason why this character has a good chance, I feel, is because they have shown in the past that they are definitely willing to dip into some of these old data mines and give us old models that we have seen in the data for a very long time. We have seen this happen many, many times over the course of the past several months. But with this character, I think that this is the perfect opportunity to add him in. So I do believe that there is a very high likelihood of this more zombified version, if you want to call him that, but again, he's not a zombie, being added in as the Boss Syndrome version. And there's one major reason. So it's from the manga, and if you haven't read the manga, A New Beginning, you need to do so. But in the manga, Geese fights first and actually absorbs him and becomes this version of Nightmare Geese. And being that this manga is considered canon by SNK, therefore I think that this version of Nightmare Geese makes the most sense, because this version of Nightmare Geese is canon. So I do believe that the chances are pretty darn high at this point that this is the version we get. But don't be surprised if we get this more kind of traditional version of Nightmare Geese, which either one works for me. I really don't have a preference at this point. You know, as much as the edgelord side of me would like to see the more kind of new school version, hey, there's nothing wrong with seeing the King of Southtown just kind of looking more in his natural state and just having kind of the ominous red eyes and all that good stuff. So, but definitely take this stuff with a grain of salt that's going around right now, guys. I just wanted to kind of let you know my 2 cents on this. But as far as Krizalid goes, I do think that this one's a little bit more straightforward. I think that the odds are that we are going to be seeing the coat version of him. As you'll see here, he's got his coat there with his real high collar and his buckles and his edgelord look, and this is going to be a very edgy banner. But overall, I do really think that the coat version of Krizalid is probably going to be what we're going to get. You know, this version of Krizalid has been available in the game as kind of just a non-playable boss for a while, and this character model has been in the data for quite a long time as well. So I think now is probably the perfect time for them to drop this version of the character. It makes the most sense in my opinion. Krizalid is one of those characters that doesn't have as many kind of alternate looks as some of these other bosses might have, so unless they decide that they're going to go completely Mugen on us and drop something that is completely off the wall and crazy, I think that this makes the most sense for him. And I know a ton of people out there are huge fans of this look for this character, so for the fan base, I think it makes the most sense as well. Krizalid fans out there have been wanting a coat-wearing version of this character for a while, so hopefully they will get their wish. Hopefully Geese fans will get their wish and get Nightmare Geese, and all of us will be happy in the next 8 days, because really with the things that went on with that last update, there was a lot of negativity, and Netmarble, I think, really took it to heart and saw it. We saw that from their reactions, and they are a very reactionary company in general, which brings me to my next point, which is probably the biggest point of this entire section of the video. Make sure that if you guys are happy with what they're doing with this update, which you should be, make sure that you let them know in the forums, in reviews, whatever you would do typically in the negative, do in the positive, because the positive reinforcement whenever they do big things like this that are good for the community needs to be heard on their end. They need to know we're happy with this kind of stuff, because think about it. If all they ever hear is the negative side, and they don't hear about the things that we're happy about, and we don't praise them in these moments, guess what? They're going to think that we didn't really care, and they're not going to do it again. So you guys need to go on the forums. You need to go on whatever channel it is that you use to talk about this stuff, to get the word out there to them, to let them know that this is a step in the right direction, that you are happy with what they're doing with this stuff, being more transparent with us, giving us more information, giving us heads up on these releases, giving us free rubies, 10k free rubies right after a collaboration when we all need it the most. They're giving us a dimensional invitation on the mileage for the dice game, which they knew that they were going to be kind of needing to do with the fact that we did just have that collaboration and we need those purple invites, and all these different little positive things that came along with this maintenance and with this announcement they need to hear about, because again, if we want to see them continue this trend, they need to know that they're doing a good job with this stuff. That way they are more apt to do it again down the road, because if this is the way that they are planning on doing things in the future, then really guys, this is a huge step forward for everyone involved, because now that we are getting a heads up on this kind of stuff and not getting blindsided like the day before or the week of, we can now start kind of planning for this kind of stuff. I know in the past I've talked about maybe doing kind of like a roadmap or whatever the case may be, but this is the next best thing. It isn't necessarily as good as it would be if we had a roadmap, but hey, we'll take it, right? It's better than what it was in the past. So that's going to do it for the KOF AS talk, because there is some regular King of Fighters community stuff I want to talk about here. So if you're only here for KOF AS, you can log off now. I appreciate all of you, but let's go ahead and talk about the physical editions for the Neo Geo Pocket Selection Volume 1 that were announced by Limited Run and Pix and Love, and you're seeing the limited run version here. Now, we don't have a retail price necessarily on these yet, but they are going to be available for an entire month to purchase starting on April 22nd, and we are going to be able to get a limited edition version of this as well that is going to have all sorts of goodies. We're going to have a steelbook in there. There's going to be a replica Neo Geo Pocket case. We're getting a poster, all kinds of really cool stuff. In my opinion, if you guys haven't seen me talk about this collection in the past, I actually have this on digital on my Switch right now. It's fantastic. If you haven't heard me talk about this, I've talked about in the past how this is an insane value for a collection of games, and these are some really, really great games as well. So I think that you guys should definitely consider picking this up on physical. It makes a ton of sense for what you're getting. But the other version that you might consider, because these are also going to be usable, even though Europe and the UK is going to be where Pix and Love ships from, when it comes to their version, this is typically going to be a really cool little nifty collection. So I'm waiting to see what is going on with their version, because they don't give us any information about kind of the goodies that are in these boxes. They're making us wait until the 22nd to see. I would assume that they're going to be fairly similar to what we're getting with the limited run version. I prefer kind of the look of the limited run version as it is right now, so I'm probably going to go with that one, but we'll have to wait and see what's in there. But I just wanted to bring those to your guys' attention, because you shouldn't sleep on this game, because it's phenomenal. But that's going to be today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Continue.